"Mom, they killed me." A crime revealed in a dream. 17-year-old Daniel Carter was struck by a train and died. At first, investigators were leaning toward the conclusion that the teenager had taken his own life. However, about a month later, the boy's mother began having disturbing dreams. In those dreams, her son told her that he had not committed suicide. Instead, he had been murdered and then placed on the train tracks. Because of this, a shocking crime came to light. There are suspects, the case has gone to court, but the mother says that some people connected to the crime are trying to walk away clean. A shocking case revealed by a mother's dreams. A shocking incident occurred when a 17-year-old boy, Daniel Carter, was struck by a train. At first, investigators concluded that the teenager had taken his own life. However, after a series of disturbing dreams reported by his mother, it became clear that this was not a suicide, but a murder. The criminal case has already reached court, but it was later sent back for further investigation by court order. According to the victim's mother, some individuals who may be involved in the crime were initially treated as suspects, but were later reclassified as witnesses. The case is still under judicial review. For this reason, without directly accusing anyone of murder, we present the situation based on investigation materials as well as interviews with the victim's family and witnesses. The signal that stopped the train. June 20th, 2025, just after midnight. A freight train was moving along its regular route when the driver suddenly heard and felt something was wrong. The train's warning signal sounded longer and louder than usual, and the heavy wheels screeched as the train was forced into an emergency stop. When the engineer got down to check the tracks, he discovered a motionless body lying between the rails. Shocked, he immediately reported the incident to the authorities. According to official investigation records, the engineer later gave the following statement: "I have been working as a locomotive engineer for several years. That night, my assistant and I took over a freight train with dozens of cars and began our scheduled trip shortly before midnight. At around 12:06 a.m., from about 200 meters away, I noticed a dark figure on the tracks. Because it was very dark, I couldn't see clearly at first. I sounded the horn, but the figure did not move. When the headlights illuminated the tracks, I realized it was a person. I immediately applied the emergency brakes and tried to stop the train. Despite this, the train could not stop in time. After stopping, I got off the locomotive to try to help, but it was already too late. I reported the incident to dispatch and to the police." About half an hour later, law enforcement officers arrived and examined the scene. After that, the train was allowed to continue its route. Later, investigators identified the victim as 17-year-old Daniel. At first, the case was treated as a possible suicide. However, new information and testimony from the family suggested that Daniel had not taken his own life and that a crime may have been committed. The case was sent to court, but later returned for further investigation. According to Daniel's mother, some individuals who may be connected to the case were first treated as suspects and later reclassified as witnesses. The investigation is still ongoing. For legal reasons, no one is being directly accused here. This story is presented based on official records and interviews with the family and witnesses.
I was already dead before I reached the tracks. The next morning, rumors spread quickly through the neighborhood. People were saying that a local auto service worker, 17-year-old Daniel, had taken his own life on the railway tracks. After the forensic examination concluded that it was a suicide, the boy was buried. According to Daniel's mother, investigators initially stated that her son had taken his own life. She recalls the last evening clearly. On the evening of June 20, Daniel said, "Mom, I'll be right back." When I asked where he was going, he said 2 friends had called him and he would just go talk to them for a bit. I told him it was late and asked him not to go, but he said he would be back in an hour and left the house. Around 11 p.m., he still hadn't returned. I got worried and tried to call him, but his phone was turned off. I thought maybe his phone battery had died and waited. Later, around 12:30 or 1 a.m., I asked my brother to take me home. He told me not to worry and said he would look for Daniel himself. I went inside. My husband was at home, and I told him, "Get up. Daniel isn't back. His phone is off. They're looking for him." Then I lay down while trying to put my younger child to sleep, and I must have fallen asleep too. In the morning, my husband was gone. I went outside and asked if Daniel had come home. No one had seen him. I started calling relatives, but no one had any news. They searched for him until morning. Then my husband called me and asked what Daniel had been wearing when he left. I said he was wearing a white t-shirt and black pants. After that, the phone call ended. A little later, my brother came back in tears and told me that the boy who had been hit by the train was Daniel. I lost consciousness when I heard that. At first, the official conclusion pointed to suicide, but later new questions began to appear. The family insists that Daniel did not take his own life and that he may have been dead before he was ever placed on the tracks.
The dreams that pointed to the truth. According to the mother, the very next morning she had a disturbing dream. In the dream, her deceased son appeared to her. "I dreamed that my phone rang from an unknown number. When I answered, I heard his voice. I said, 'Daniel, is that you, my son?' He replied, 'Yes, Mom, it's me.' I asked him where he was. He said, 'Mom, when you were at home sewing, I was already dead. I didn't die on the tracks. They took me thereafter.' Then the dream ended. She woke up in shock and immediately told her relatives about it. At first, they thought it was just stress and grief. A doctor was called, and she was given medication to calm her down. But the same dream returned again and again over the next few days. On one of those mornings, she insisted that there must be a reason for these dreams. She told her family that one of Daniel's friends might know something. Reluctantly, they agreed to go and speak with him. At first, the friend was terrified and refused to say anything, but a few days later he broke down and admitted that Daniel had been attacked by a group of boys, and that after he died, they took his body and left it on the railway tracks. He also said that they had tried to destroy or get rid of Daniel's belongings to hide what had happened. After this, investigators called the mother back in and asked her to describe her dreams again. This time, her words were taken more seriously. The case was reviewed once more, and new evidence was discussed. According to the family, some of Daniel's personal items were never found. Only a phone card was later discovered near a workshop area after investigators carefully searched the surroundings. The mother says that those involved began blaming each other. Later, one officer admitted to her that the early conclusions had been wrong. At first, they believed Daniel had been drinking or using substances, but later it became clear that this had been staged after his death to mislead the investigation. The family insists that Daniel never drank or used drugs. That night, he had only gone out because he was called by people he thought he could trust. Eventually, several suspects were identified. Investigators believe that the attack was planned in advance because of a personal conflict. According to the case file, the group lured Daniel out under a false pretext, confronted him, and later tried to make his death look like an accident. Daniel was only 17 years old. He was his mother's only son. She says she raised him with great difficulty, taught him to work, and hoped for his future. "He was my only child. I did everything I could for him. He was just starting his life," she says. The investigation concludes that this was not an accident and not a suicide, but a deliberate crime. The case is now moving through the legal system, and the final decision will be made by the court.
How the crime was carried out, according to investigators. According to the investigation, the three suspects went together to a remote field area and sat down at a small outdoor shelter where they began drinking beer. After some time, one of them left, saying he needed to take a relative home. About half an hour later, he returned with another accomplice. Investigators say that once they believed the moment was right, they decided to act. To make Daniel unable to defend himself, one of them took out a strong-smelling substance and offered it to him to inhale. After breathing it in, Daniel became dizzy and disoriented. At that point, the attackers moved in. One of them restrained Daniel from behind, while another held his legs to prevent him from moving. When they realized he was unconscious, they tried to make sure he would not recover. After some time, they believed Daniel was no longer alive. According to the case file, the suspects then decided to hide the crime and avoid responsibility by making it look like a suicide.
They carried Daniel's body to the railway tracks, lifting him together and placing him there in a way that would mislead investigators. A short time later, a freight train passing along its route struck the body. This, investigators say, is how the crime was staged to look like a tragic accident. Different voices, different claims. Journalists later spoke with relatives of the victim, relatives of the suspects, and several witnesses. Their accounts differ and emotions remain high. Some insist on the family's version of events, others deny any wrongdoing, and some say they were afraid to speak earlier. What is clear is this: the case has divided opinions, raised many questions, and remains under close public attention. The final judgment will now be up to the court.
A cinematic, emotional justice scene. A sad mother in the foreground, a dark courtroom corridor in the background. Light on the wall forms the word justice. Shadowy silhouettes of criminals in handcuffs in the distance. Dramatic lighting, realistic style, high detail, cinematic mood. No blood, no violence, no gore, no text. What relatives and witnesses say. Daniel's uncle says that when his nephew was found on the tracks, he was barefoot. There's no way he could have walked there himself. The ground is covered with sharp stones and weeds. Anyone walking there would have injured their feet, but his feet were clean, without cuts or wounds. That told us he was carried there. At first, the investigators kept saying it was suicide. I didn't believe in the dreams at first either. We thought it was just grief. But later, we started checking things ourselves. We looked at camera footage, and little by little, our suspicions grew. In the end, it was those dreams that pushed us to the truth. A local witness says he was called to the railway late at night and saw Daniel's body there. I recognized him immediately. He was the son of my close friend. I told him this couldn't be suicide. There wasn't the kind of blood you would normally expect. Something didn't add up. I was in shock and didn't even know what to do. Daniel's father says the family waited almost a month for the forensic report. When it finally came, they said he had gone onto the tracks himself and died there. We asked questions, but they insisted that was the conclusion. Only later, when suspects were identified and admitted that he had been strangled, did the story change. Until then, it felt like the truth was being hidden or ignored. One of the suspect's fathers says his son denies killing Daniel and claims he only helped move the body after the fact. I wasn't there. I can't accuse someone else's child. My son says he didn't kill him, but that he panicked and helped carry the body. I don't know what really happened. Conflicting testimonies. During the investigation, the two main suspects blamed each other. Each admitted being present but denied being the one who caused Daniel's death. Their statements contradicted one another, and investigators were left to piece together what really happened. A third person, who later came forward, told investigators that the group had admitted what they did that night and even showed Daniel's phone as proof. At first, he was too afraid to speak. Only days later, after repeated pressure and visits from the family, did he finally tell the full story to the authorities. Why the case was sent back for further investigation. Daniel's mother says she is not satisfied with how the case has been handled. According to her, not everyone who was involved has been charged. She points out that one person who was present during the crime is now treated only as a witness, while another person who helped hide evidence is charged only with covering up the crime. Meanwhile, someone who admitted destroying Daniel's bicycle to avoid suspicion is not included in the case at all. I want everyone who took part to be punished, she says. My son left home healthy and alive. I never even got to see his body one last time. I don't even know where else to ask for justice. Because of these unresolved issues, the court issued a decision on January 7, 2026, sending the case back for further investigation. For now, the two main defendants remain in custody while investigators review the case again. After the new investigation is completed, the case is expected to return to court. A mother who lost her only son continues to wait, holding on to one hope, that everyone responsible for Daniel's death will finally be held accountable.